Resuming debates, the Honourable Member for Thornhill.
The Liberals in this debate, all day long, they keep saying that Canadians have never had it so good, and they seem exacerbated as, again, we fight against their punishing carbon tax. Here's the thing, Mr. Speaker, we're going to keep fighting against the carbon tax. We're going to keep fighting the tax so Canadians can keep their heat on, they can drive to work, they can afford nutritious food, and we will never apologize for that. You've heard today some version of what they call an environmental plan, but make no mistake, the Liberals gave us an environmental plan. Well, they gave us a tax plan, and it was disguised as an environmental plan, and it's been directly cited for the higher prices. In fact, their tax is working so well that we've already seen it raised 3 times. And we're still no closer to meeting any sort of environmental goal. In fact, Canada is the only G7 country, and if we want to play the facts game, that have raised fuel taxes during a period of record high inflation, and that should tell you everything that you need to know about where we are in this. We are in the depths of winter, and home heating costs are, in some cases, are up 100%. Heating your home in Canada is not a luxury. I don't know why we have to say it, but it is a necessity in this country, and all you have to do is go outside for 30 minutes. And there is no denying that the government and their NDP coalition partners who vote with them every single time, although they get up in this House and scream at them that nothing is going right and then continue to support the government into making prices higher for families. They do that. They make this necessity more expensive with a plan to triple the tax, no matter what they say outside of this place. No matter what motion they bring forward, they are the ones who support this government in making things more expensive for every single Canadian. It's a plan that disproportionately punishes people in areas that have no choice but to rely on heating oil rather than heat source and other heat sources made more expensive by the carbon tax. It's a plan that disproportionately punishes families, including parents who are struggling to feed their kids, who are struggling to get to work, who are struggling to drive their kids to activities and school. Mr. Speaker, I know that they don't like to hear it, and they certainly don't want to talk about it, and we'd be here for an eternity if they had to admit it. But for more Canadians, things have never been so bad, and a little humility and an admission of responsibility would go a long way for the people across the aisle. These Liberals laugh and they say the stories that we tell in this House, well, they aren't real. They must not speak to the same people that we speak to. They must not listen to the same people that we listen to. They must not go to the places where we go. And if they did, they know these stories are very real. They are painfully real for millions of Canadians, and they are growing in number. And the most out-of-touch thing that anybody can do serving others in this place is to bury their heads in the sand and pretend like everything is fine, because it is not. It is far from it. Here in Canada, the Liberals have given us the highest inflation in 40 years, some of the highest interest rates in the G7, the highest in a generation, and the highest home prices ever. And now add on top of that a carbon tax, and we'll continue to speak against that tax in this House until we have the opportunity as a government to remove it. If the government was at all in touch with the economic reality, they'd know that you cannot tax your way to prosperity. You can't do that. It doesn't work. It never has. On our energy sectors, on our farmers, by the way, somebody who will speak with farmers is the Honourable Member from Foothills, in which I will be splitting my time with. On everything that we eat, on everything that we buy, on everything that we use, the Liberals have imposed a tax, and it started at $30 a tonne, and then it went to $40 a tonne, and now it's at $50 a tonne, and they promised Canadians before the last election that it would never go up. And never is a really long time, but it did. Because we should have known better. We should have known that 30 was going to be 40, it was going to be 50, and now it's 170. And that might not mean a lot in terms of on tonnage, but it makes everything that you buy, that you eat, that you use, where you go, more expensive. It has an effect right throughout the economy. They will tell you that Canadians get back more than they pay. The Parliamentary Budget Officer said the opposite, tripling the price without even making a dent in emissions and presenting it as they are returning that money to Canadians is the only misinformation that we have heard in the House today. The question is why? Why, after all of this evidence, are they still saying that over and over again? All they have to do is open the report from the parliamentary budget officer that they themselves appointed. 20% of Canadians are skipping meals just to make ends meet because the cost of groceries has gone up 11%. And they haven't gone up because I've said they've gone up. They've gone up because they've actually gone up. And people aren't angry because I say that they're angry. They're angry because they are hungry, and the price of groceries has gone up 11%. A direct result of the carbon tax, because it costs more to grow, it costs more to harvest, it costs more to transport, and it costs more to buy. The Liberals blame someone else or something else or somewhere else for that failure. It is their fault. It is squarely their fault. And they could show some humility in this House and take responsibility. Again, it would go a long way. We have the lowest projected GDP per capita growth of any advanced economy. Not just in the G7, but of any advanced economy. And the time right now to add taxes to the mix, well, that's not right now. It's actually never when it comes to this tax that doesn't work. 2 years ago, the Leader of the Opposition, when he sat here as the Member of Parliament, warned that if a government unchecked, unrestrained, out of control spending, that would lead to higher inflation and higher interest rates. The cost of government would drive up the cost of living, and that's exactly what we've seen happen. The Liberals told us that the only way to save ourselves on the environmental front is a tax. A carbon tax is the only way. And yet again, that doesn't match with reality. But it turns out once again that our trust was misplaced in a Liberal government that said they wouldn't raise a carbon tax, who have now raised a carbon tax and are about to triple it. Triple, triple, triple. Almost. All you need to do is verify the claim or just look around. Do we not have the highest inflation in 40 years? Do we not have the highest interest rates in the generation? Is home ownership not out of reach for Canadians? Are people not paying more for the cost of energy to heat their homes, to drive their cars, to buy their food? We know the answers, and it seems that the Liberals know it too. We bring this up every single day in the House, and we quote testimony from experts, testimony from their own parliamentary budget officer, which they appointed. We bring stories of the people that are hurting in this country, that they laugh off or that they call fake. This is the response from government. Another program, another inflationary spending measure, a plan to triple the carbon tax, more platitudes, empty words, a few Instagram posts, and then they all pat themselves on the back and clap for each other. The Liberals can talk about the billions that they've spent, and they can talk about it all they want, I should say. But that comes from the taxpayer, and never has so much money been spent to bring so few results to so few people in this country, and that's a fact. And the more of the same ideas that got us here in the first place just aren't good enough, and we have a different approach. And instead of giving more power to the government, instead of the central planning that we see from them, let's give more power to Canadians and let them spend more of their own money. Let's put that money back into their pockets and help them live with dignity, help them survive, help them pay to heat their homes and to drive their cars and to buy nutritious food for their families. Instead of raising taxes, leave workers with more money in their pockets because they know how to spend their wages. There is only one taxpayer in this country, and the Liberals ought to recognize that. The Liberals ought to show some humility again and take some responsibility for the inflation crisis that they've caused and not add yet another tax. Instead of throwing more money at the problem, let's invest in solutions that work. Let's reduce greenhouse gases let's get housing built. Let's build more transit. In short, instead of telling Canadians that everything is fine and that they've never had it so good, let's show some humility. Well, let's have the government show some humility and take responsibility for the crisis that they themselves have created.